The first recommendation on this list is a hilariously heartwarming series following a young psychic boy and his con artist mentor. Welcome, anime friends. My name is Phoenix, and before we begin, there's one rule you must follow. Make sure to grab your cup and your peanuts if you like, and it's time to spill the anime tea. If you guessed Mob Psycho 100, you are correct. Good for you. The thing I love about Mob Psycho and the thing that makes it most similar to Spy Family is the use of a vast array of facial expressions. There are so many facial expressions for Annie's character, specifically in Spy Family, and the same can be said for Mob Psycho 100. Even the main character Mob, who is supposed to be an expressionless kind of robot type of person who has trouble really showing his true emotions, has an array of facial expressions that are so subtle, make you love him even more. Besides having, the cute psychic babies, the other things that make it similar are the underlying messages of belonging and understanding oneself, all tied together, of course, with comedy. Of course, one thing that Mob Psycho 100 does better than any of the series on this list, not just Spy Family, is have incredible fight scenes. Like, these psychic showdowns are insane. They're beautiful and terrifying, and they're so different and unique from one another, and they tell us so much about Mob's character. The great thing about Mob Psycho 100 is that the adults learn lessons, not just the children, and there's a hint of that in Spy Family, with Lloyd and Yor learning a little bit about how to be parents and how to actually care for someone else besides, their missions and their night jobs. But in Mob Psycho 100, Reagan and the other adults are deeply flawed, yet very valuable to Mob and his journey. They're not put on a pedestal. They're not seen as these unchangeable adults that just tell you how it is. They have things that they have to overcome as well, and they get their own story arcs. I look closely at the aspects that made up Spy Family to try to determine what makes it such an international universal hit, and I found out that it's kind of like a baking recipe. There's lots of different factors and measurements, and a little bit of science is involved, but there are a few key ingredients that are repeated across other series that make for a universally appealing show. Some of these ingredients include one undeniably lovable and adorable main character that is able to capture the heart of the audience in a few episodes. Giving them a memeable or memorable facial expressions is a huge plus. We also need at least one or sometimes two mentor or guardian characters that are able to care for the adorable, lovable main character. This is usually because that main character is naive or young and they just need someone looking out for them to help them grow and progress in their story. What's a great story without some great comedy, specifically comedy that involves shenanigans and that revolve around the main cast, the main characters? We need a bubbly, crazy, mischievous main character to balance out with a more calm, level-headed character and, cause trouble for both of them, or entertainment in Anya's case. But of course, the one ingredient that everyone seems to overlook, that's kind of hidden in there, you can't really taste it or smell it, is an underlying theme of a deeper meaning. Usually in shows like this, like slice of life, comedy, action shows, it's the meaning of friendship, family, and belonging that really draw audiences to the show without even realizing that that's what's drawing them in. Bonus points if you're able to make a series both hilarious and heartwarming. Speaking of, this next one I'm super excited for because I've been waiting for a moment to recommend this to people, but I have not had an excuse to recommend it to anyone until now. Thank you, Spy Family. Kakushigoto follows a dad and his young daughter who have lost, the mother of their family and are just trying to live their everyday normal lives, except that the dad is pretending that he's an office worker, when in actuality he is a really famous mangaka who has created a kind of perverted, hilarious action series that's in a popular shonen magazine, and he doesn't want his young daughter to find out because he doesn't want it to affect her life. I have a huge soft spot for series that emphasize the relationship between fathers and daughters. I love my dad. We have a fairly close relationship, and I just love seeing that in the media that I watch. What makes this series stand out as compared to other father-daughter series, because there's lots of those, there's literally an isekai where a dad and his daughter get sent to another world together, and then he protects his daughter in the other world. I haven't seen that one, but it sounds wholesome. What makes Kakushigoto different is that there's this hint of mystery kind of going on in the background, and this deeper subplot of exploring the good and bad of keeping secrets within a family, and I really enjoyed that part. How the parent tries to protect his daughter from his life is really wholesome and sweet, but at the same time, like, the young girl wants to know all of these things, and rightfully so. Like, she doesn't want to be kept in the dark. I like that dynamic between the two main characters. I like that it's not just this perfect, cute little family being cute all the time. They have their issues and they have to talk about it and figure it out. The series lacks in action because this is a series that actually has no action or fighting whatsoever. It makes up for it in just non-stop antics. Like, the lengths that the dad goes through to try to keep his daughter from learning about his day job are so funny. But don't be fooled by the lighthearted comedy of the show. There's this other secret kind of mystery going on in the background that keeps you intrigued and keeps you coming back for more each episode. Kind of similar to how in Spy Family, each of the backgrounds of the main characters keep us interested in the series because we want to learn more about, like, how they got to where they were, what kind of things motivate them to do their jobs, and where they came from and what they had to go through. Especially Anya, you know, we got that little glimpse of Anya and how those people were using her psychic abilities, probably for evil, and I want to learn more about that. Speaking of adorable psychic girls, I got another full-length series featuring 3 adorable psychic girls that you might like, and that is Hina Matsuri. This unconventional slice of life comedy follows 2, well, actually 3, psychic girls who fall out of the sky. One ends up in a Yakuza's lavish apartment, and the other ends up literally on the streets. The other one ends up on a deserted island, but I mean, we'll talk about her later. Each learns to fit into society in their own ways. On another note, we got, you know, our blonde tough guy, Nita, who is the Yakuza of the story, who ends up being the main parent to one of the main characters in the show, who is Hina, and it's just a hilarious time. Like, Nita is supposed to be this badass Yakuza guy who, like, beats people up and will kill people, but he's actually a pretty decent guy, and then Hina just falls into his house and bullies him by destroying all of his vases and telling him to take care of her. The fights in the show aren't as well animated as those in Spy Family or Mob Psycho 100 for that matter, but it does that way as a more comedic approach because, you know, it's just funny to kind of see these psychic girls who are super uber powerful, like throwing baddie Yakuza guys out of the window. The show also lacks diversity of facial expression. They are very minimal, and it's more just fast-paced, dry humor. Similar to Mob Psycho 100, the main character Hina is kind of like Mob in that she doesn't really have a lot of expressions. She's kind of this blank-faced kid, but Hina's totally different from Mob because she just wants to eat all the time and she's really selfish and she's kind of a brat. Though it takes some time to get to, there is some really wholesome, amazing, great character growth in this series, especially for Anzu. She is the best main character of the show. She goes through so much character growth and I love her to pieces. What I really love about Hina Matsuri is how the dynamic of each of the girls compares to one another, and we see how them growing up either super rich, super poor, or literally on an island alone for months at a time, how that affects how they change and grow and who they become. Before I get into my favorite recommendation on this list, one that I make sure everyone watches, here are some honorable mentions of anime that didn't quite make it to the list, to the main list that is, but still are somewhat on par with Spy Family. Psyche K, or The Disastrous Life of Psyche K, which is a Netflix series. It's hilarious. We have another pink-haired, double hair ornament typed character that is super lovable. I'll connect it with fast-paced comedy, of course. For more wholesome series that feature fathers and daughters, we have Sweetness and Lightning, which follows a father and daughter and their high school babysitter friend, I'm not really sure, who comes into their family and they all eat and share meals, and it's just a really wholesome series that has some really delicious food and recipes as well. And of course, Barakamon follows a loner guy who is a calligrapher who moves out to the countryside and ends up making friends with all the locals there, but particularly with one young girl who kind of wiggles her way into his heart and is just an adorable little mischievous country bumpkin that will steal your heart. Now let's talk about my favorite recommendation on this list, the one anime that you must watch, besides Mob Psycho 100, of course. It is called Kotaro Lives Alone. Many people probably have watched this show already because it came out on Netflix not too long before Spy Family came out. So you may have seen it, but if you have not, here is why you should watch it. The story follows a young boy named Kotaro who speaks like an old man, and to the surprise of all of his neighbors, who lives alone in an apartment complex. Though he tries to act wise beyond his years, he's actually very lonely and ends up relying on his neighbors for support as much as they begin to rely on him and care for him. Most of the humor in the show comes from Kotaro and how his personality contradicts itself, how he simultaneously kind of acts like this 50-year-old man who kind of knows all about life and is wise beyond his years, but also at the same time is just a young kid who likes his, daytime television cartoons and going around and playing with his friends in kindergarten and all of those adorable things. Unlike some of the characters that I mentioned on this list, Kotaro is not a psychic. He doesn't have any powers. However, he does have this secret kind of ability to see through people's facades or facades, however you say it, and really see who they are as a person and the things that they've been through and help them overcome it. Each thing that he does, each thing that he says, and each thing that he's able to see in other people kind of is reflected in his own life and helps us understand his own past and why he is currently living alone. There are a lot of heavy themes in Kotaro Lives Alone, and the more you watch, the heavier the themes get in the show with each of the characters, their backstories, their current stories, and their situations, especially Kotaro's. Nothing is ever explicitly said, like it doesn't explicitly say the words that they're called, abuse or other things, but it references to it quite often. So if you're sensitive to that, I wouldn't recommend the show to you. But if you're willing to watch it, it is very eye-opening and really beautiful. It's a really beautiful story told in a funny way with this cute little kid that you will love to pieces. Also, it does a fantastic job of balancing the heavier topics with the lighter comedy, because a lot of the comedy comes from the main character and the main character has a lot of the heavier trauma. He balances the show with the way he talks and everything that he does. Spy Family is kind of the opposite of Kotaro Lives Alone. They have a lot more comedy, lightheartedness, and kind of random shenanigans, but they do have this subtle little hint of deeper themes of belonging and family and overcoming loneliness and finding people who will accept you. In the ending song for Spy Family, called Comedy by Gen Hoshino, if you actually listen or read the lyrics, you will learn that the song talks about deeper themes of having a family, doing everyday ordinary things, but feeling like you belong somewhere because someone has made you feel like you belong. They love you and they take care of you. And that is just so universally, deeply understood by people. Literally on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, being loved and wanting to love is the third tier. It's not even that high up. It's right there in the middle. It's so important to have that. When I read the lyrics to that, I started crying because it got deep all of a sudden. I'm like, dang, I just saw Spy Family in a whole new light. And these are the same themes that are brought up in Kotaro Lives Alone. On another note, I think Anya and Kotaro would get along swimmingly. They would be the cutest little duo, just causing mischief and having fun, and Kotaro would be able to break things down to Anya so she can better understand things, and she's gonna read his mind and see that he's actually sad. If you have fan art of this, send it my way. I want to see it. I hope this list helps to satiate your need for cute, adorable kids doing cute things and being with their families and finding people to take care of them and help, at least until the next half of Anya's adventures with her assassin mommy and her spy daddy come back. Maybe watch one of these shows while eating a bag of peanuts to keep the Spy Family theme alive. Let me know in the comments what anime you would recommend to people who are looking for similar shows like Spy Family to watch. As always, my name is Phoenix and I break down visual storytelling in anime and sometimes manga on a weekly basis. Thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos about Spy Family because you're missing it a lot like I am, check out one of these up here. I have a whole playlist of Spy Family videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!